Your 2024 guide to the lovely Venice, Florida. Comprehensive A to Z, new and improved, refreshed, and all of that. That's the goal of today's video. We're going to talk geography, location, homes, and much, much more. My name is Adam Hancock. You have returned to the Florida Relocation Guide YouTube channel. And before I hop in, I wanted to mention one really exciting announcement. I have created the very first Florida Relocation community group. So this is a private but absolutely free group that I would encourage and invite all of you to join. And we're going to deliver many things that don't exist elsewhere amongst what I'm about to mention. One of those is going to be every single week, I'm not only working on videos, I'm talking to all of our agents, and we do a lot of things that data would expire 3 days from now. So I'm going to give a once a week brain dump that is all of that. It's the most real-time version of anything that I'm even ruminating on at the time. In addition to that, we are going to have a private way to ask me any individual question as narrow as you want to get for your specific situation directly to me. I'm going to answer 100% of them myself. It's going to be private. No other members will see them, and I'm going to answer as fast as I can. So you're going to have that option. Any guides that I create for videos like spreadsheets and analytical tools, all that kind of stuff that maybe would release 3 weeks from now in a video that's scheduled, you are going to get first dibs and all of that, in addition to many, many more things that we're going to add into that community. So I encourage all of you to join that. We'll have a pop-up here, description box below. It will exist moving forward from this video everywhere that you can find anything about our world. So please check that out. And without further ado, let's hop in. Okay, quick video gameplay and preface before we get into the nitty-gritty here. So I believe this is the 4th year that I've done some sort of deep dive analysis with Venice, Florida. So because of that, I have 3 other videos that are hopping around on the channel there that, probably from 2021 to 2023, I would think, if I looked back, and we'll tag those somewhere here. All have value in their own outright, depending on the mindset I was in, what we were doing at the time. I'm sure the further you go back, the more macro they are. However, they have a date stamp issue, right? What was Wellen Park 3 years ago, potentially till now? So you got to put that in context. But because I've already done that, what I would like to do here ideally is 2 things. One, if you've never watched a single one of my videos, or you've never seen a Venice version, because maybe you're just got in the market, so why would you be searching for 3-year-old information? I would like this to have standalone value for you. So you're not gonna not understand this video because it's building on the back of something you've never seen, ideally. 2 is that if you have watched all other 3, you're as deep as it gets, and maybe you haven't bought yet or you're still tuning in, then I would like this video to have incremental value for you in addition to everything else you've seen. So in a perfect world, that's what I accomplished today. And let's hop into the first category of geography. Okay, with that being said, I'm not going to get near as crazy here about location as I typically do and have done many, many times in the past on this channel. If you go looking for it, you will find that. But I will, in the home section that comes next, I will bring all of this together. So don't worry, I'm just going to simplify it a bit in the 2024 version. But right here, what I want to get across, when we say, or I say Venice, it don't really mean just the city of Venice. I more mean below Sarasota. When you go south of Sarasota, I would also include in your head Osprey, Nokomis, obviously Venice itself, Venice Island, Northern Englewood, and Western Northport. Because what I see the most time with buyers and growing up here and like the way people view this district, when you simply make the decision to go south, whatever that may be, it could be cost, it could be coastal proximity, pace of life, whatever that may be, or all of it, then it's not just one of these. Like some of them even bleed in a synonymous fashion, i.e. the Wellen Park district, right? And then when you're saying, why would I choose to go north of Venice Island versus south or something like that, which we will cover here more in a minute, then a lot of times it comes down to the home, it comes down to the specific community or something like that. So that's one. And second, if you're just more, I just want to take a step back and not assume that you're familiar with Southwest Florida or this area as deeply as I just described. And if you're not, what we basically have here in a speed round is when you say Sarasota's metro, it's 2 main counties. It's Sarasota County, it's Manatee County. What is included in Sarasota County is obviously Sarasota city limits, but also Siesta Key, half of the barrier island of Longboat Key, all of Lido Key, all of Bird Key, the Waterside District, the southern district of Lakewood Ranch, Florida, Osprey, Nokomis, which are 2 cities within the county, Englewood, and Northport. When you say Manatee County, you're basically going north and you're going east to west. So you catch the other half of Longboat Key. It's almost 50-50 split exactly. Stay on the islands. You got Anna Maria Island, Coquina, Bradenton Beach, Holmes Beach, all of that. You have Palmasola, mainland, western Bradenton, so coastal Bradenton. Then you have the part of Bradenton that most people think of, which is the rest of Lakewood Ranch, Florida, which was 100% Manatee County until very recently. So basically everything north and east to west of University Parkway. And then you have Parish, you have Palmetto, and it's that general direction. So that's how I would sum up in 15 seconds what the Sarasota Metro involves. And let's hop to the fun stuff and talk about real estate. Okay, when it comes to housing for this year's version, I decided to structure with kind of like a 5-headed monster. Head number 1 is what are all the different ways to live in and around the Venice, Florida area? This is going to tie a bow on what I previously mentioned in the last section. Why would you live north, south, east, west, or central? And it really is important about the lifestyle that provides. The second thing is I ended up building, just because the only way that I could get the information to you, another labor of love. 360 days of data, every single sale, every line item that existed in the world in these areas. And with that information, I'm going to plot on a map here for you of all of the cities, the median and the average price point, and even the split of single families versus villas versus townhomes versus condominiums. So maybe you could immediately say, oh, that's my short list based on what else you've heard. And then your next step, or what I would naturally think is, that's great, but what can I do with this information? Well, because I had to go so deep in order to get that information I just mentioned, this is the only way to do it right, I now have all the data. So with that data, I'm also going to screen share kind of live to a point with you that tool. And I'm going to show you basically the most popular neighborhoods that existed. We're going to walk through that briefly, whatever makes sense, so that you can see where people actually spent their money, not just my opinion. And that gets you even deeper because that's not only just county, it's county, city, neighborhood, and zip code area. So I think that's going to be helpful. After that, I want to talk about what we need to talk about is one of the sexiest master plan communities in the entire United States right now, Wellen Park, which is its whole other animal, which I'm going to break that down. Not crazy here. I've done that many times, but I'm going to mention that here. Also, we'll mention some other top new construction communities that don't exist within Wellen Park, but do exist in the district. And I think that's our 5. The spreadsheet in the video that I'm showing is absolutely free. It's a free download. If you go to that community group I mentioned earlier, then you will have that as early as it gets. It probably already is in there. And that's the monster. Let's get started. So what are your true options when it comes to considering this interesting area? Well, let's frame the conversation real quick that our central point, everything we're going to ping off of in this context, is going to be downtown historic Venice. It's a non-barrier island, urban districts there, the beaches are there, and it sits in the middle. The first ping you would take is by going north of the island. So this would be Osprey being the closest to Sarasota, then Nokomis, and then east to west, you have North Venice. So it's really a rectangle of sorts that sits below an old school master plan area called Palmer Ranch. And what you gain by doing that is you gain not completely losing Sarasota, more or less, in my opinion. Most people, this is even remotely on your radar as a junior version of being close to all the Sarasota stuff. Siesta Key, the Arts, Lido, downtown Sarasota. That's really why this whole area is in vogue in the first place. Well, this gets you 10 to 15 minutes closer to all of that kind of stuff. So if you're asking yourself, well, yeah, why wouldn't everybody do that? I get Venice and I don't lose that much Sarasota. I kind of get both. Well, what you don't gain is you don't gain a perfect master plan box. If you're not from this area, it could feel very random. You do have new construction, you have Talon Preserve, and you have some Silo and Vincenza, some odds and ends, but they're patched in the middle of stuff that existed forever. There's not really consolidated in any way. There's no communal amenities. You're going other places outside your town for almost everything. So that makes it not a slam dunk decision. The second area you would go is south of the island. And this is really that Wellen Park conversation. The reason you would go south, not north, is to get all that new construction. You have Wellen Park, which again, I want to hit a little separate here in 2 bullet points from now. But it's not that common in the state of Florida to get coastal proximity and to get new construction because there's no land. Lake Ranch is what it is because it's east. It's a big patch of land that one family owns. This is the same with like a lot of Wesley Chapel. And they can build whatever they want, right? So they can make these things 30,000 acres and 40 neighborhoods. Well, it's not that. The first people that settled in Florida went to the best areas, which was the coast for the most part. Well, they carved out a really unique thing to satiate that need called Wellen Park. You're getting 9, 11, 12 neighborhoods. Everything's 18 miles or less to the beach, and it has its own little downtown, all this kind of stuff. However, again, why wouldn't everyone pick this? It gets pretty far south. You could be the same distance east to west to the same beaches. Like, let's say you're the same distance to Venice Island, east to west. In Osprey, or in Wellen Park, and those two be 17 to 25 minutes north to south from each other. So again, what this basically does is it makes it a lot further in essence to the Sarasota stuff versus choosing the north direction. Going to touch on that a little bit more. And then everything else would be basically living on Venice Island, which would be your central, or just living in Venice, which would be like not on the island, but parallel to the island. The reason you do that is just if you're neither one of those really fits in a box for you. It could be a particular neighborhood, but a lot of it's for the island reasons. I just did another beach ranking that existed a week before this one, the 25 cheapest beach towns in the entire Gulf Coast of Florida, which was actually all 25 beach towns north to south. And that involved all the Panhandle, all of Sarasota, all of Tampa Bay, all of Naples, and Venice Island was the second cheapest, only to Panama City in the entire Gulf Coast of Florida. So you get 3 beaches: Venice Beach, Casperson Beach, the Shark's Tooth capital of the world. You get Brohard Beach, the only dog beach in the county. It's not a barrier island, like I said. So if you're on that island, almost every single home on the island can walk to the beach. Feels incredibly coastal. It's a much more quaint, laid-back version of like a siesta, if Siesta Key and Anna Maria Island had a baby. And so people get romantic about that. It is charming. The high school is right on the island, so your kids are going to high school with that lifestyle. That's the reason you choose the middle, mostly not due to proximity, due to that. And so that's how I'd frame that up. And let's hop real quick, and I will show you the pricing in each of these areas now that you have context, and then we'll hop and talk about neighborhoods. Okay, let's plot this whole thing just to give you a better overall idea of what's going on here. We'll start with north of the island again. Osprey, Nokomis, North Venice. Osprey most expensive, North Venice least expensive. But even without the tool, which is going to let you drill down to literally the specific area you're looking for, you can pull out some interesting data, because look at Osprey with the average cost divide versus median. That big divide, with median being a better overall indicator, tells you about outliers. But also look at the split of condominiums. 27% of the total sales existed with the condominiums. However, Nokomis, just as coastal but southern, only 4% of total sales were condos. And then North Venice, only 5%. Well, then look at Nokomis versus North Venice in similar condos, but look at the single families. North Venice had 92% of overall sales were just single family homes, where in Nokomis, you're going to see a little bit more of the townhomes and the villas, which are going to live similar to the condominiums without maybe the exorbitant fees and a little bit more neighborhood feel. So interesting overall. And then again, like this is a ripple of economics themes overall with our Sarasota Metro. If you simply go east, I don't care if you're north to south, you're going to probably save money because you lose a little bit of the coast, which is the case a little bit more for North Venice. Now, Venice, Florida on this map plotting is going to be that whole central shebang, but the numbers show you. But look at the average and the median cost. One, they're really close to each other, and that involves the entire island, which is typically not the case. You know, you don't have, you go to Siesta Key, you have a 10 millioner and a 900,000er, but this one's pretty close, which tells you the overall you have a good shot at getting in this range, and affordable versus areas that a lot of people would deem less attractive. And then you have a 20% split of condominiums, you have single families. So that makes total sense there. We're going to get into that deeper. And then North Englewood for this conversation, we're not considering all of Englewood again. This is very important. We're just considering the zip codes that bleed in to the southern, like Wellen Park area. Boca Royale, that Neal community is technically Wellen Park, but it's full on sits in Englewood, right? But it's very, very coastal, and you're going to have some of that in these numbers. But 630K average, outliers, which are your beach ones probably, on Minnesota Key, and then median cost your 461. Split makes total sense. And then Western Northport, Northport is a massive area. It's bigger than people think. We're only considering the parts that could even be relatively considered against the Venice areas. So it's that real western part. But you're going to save money if you go to Northport. Any way you slice it. 0 condominiums on this list. And you got some villa and townhome neighborhoods, but single families are the belle of the ball. So that's that. And let me pull up the spreadsheet real quick, and we'll walk through some neighborhoods. I'll tell you how the tool works, tell you where to find it, and then we'll talk some new construction. All right, here is the tool that I mentioned. We're going to talk neighborhoods. I'm going to show you some pre-templated ways to use it to make things easier. And then beyond this, you go literally as wild as you want with the raw data if you're so inclined. All right, from a raw data perspective, speaking of that, we're starting off with 4,277 total sales. So we got a good chunk of data we're working with. This table I'm showing you here starts with neighborhood as the highest weighted factor, and then beyond that, it's from a popular perspective, and then it's going area. And I'm going to tell you how to use all this. So in the last 360 days, South Venice, that real Wellen Park area, but also including the old school southern by the ferry boater neighborhoods, was #1 overall. Toscana Isles is that D.R. Horton community. It has lakes as big as like the Waterside community, but D.R. Horton's nicer brand is mostly Toscana Isles. Grand Paradiso was Neil communities, no golf there. Island Walk was one of the most popular communities that existed in the area before Wellen is mature as it is now. It's lovely. That's DeValsta Homes, who also builds Talon Reserve. Venice Gardens, old school central Venice area. Grand Palm is Neil Communities, which I mentioned earlier. Sarasota National is Lennar Golf. Talon Preserve is the sister to Island Walk. DeValsta, you have Valencia in there. Sereno East, Sereno Shores. A lot of people like that's mature. Venice Renaissance is the Madame homes I mentioned. So you got to get the point here, and you can pick through all of these. I'm going to show you again more here. We have number of sales from a count perspective, sold price average. This is the average dollars per square foot. The square footage average, the size of the home, which could be important here in a minute. Bedroom, bathroom average, and then year of built average. So what you can do here, I'm going to go quick so we don't bore you to death. This tool's free. It's yours when you want it. You can say, all right, this all stays the same. So you say, I'm only looking at single family homes. So you click it once, right? It's the only thing that stays green. I'm using a Mac here, but if you want to use multiple, on a Mac, you hold Command. Now I got 2. Everything that's green is in play. You want to unclick it, hold it again. Now it's out of play. Control, I use Windows forever, but Control is the Windows, I believe. So I want to use single families only. Say that I only want to look between 350,000. So I clicked it once, Command, to 750. So you kind of see, sometimes the area even changes, the neighborhood even changes, but you can see what's in play here. Then you can say, I can't have something super small. So let's say I'll do everything over 2,000 square feet. Boom. And then you could get more granular here, but for this chart, I don't like it. Well, look what's #1. So immediately, which category hopped out South Venice, right? It's the size of the home. So you had probably a lot of villas and small stuff there. But the size of the home, so now Toscana Isles is a real jam. And then you can say, like, is this a one-off? Do I have a fighting shot to actually make this happen? Thought Michael's going to die. But Toscana Isles has 50 homes there, and you can see the average right there. Well, then you can click, I have a little reminder here. You can double-click any of these numbers in this chart. It'll open a new tab with just the raw data of that 50. So if you go down, you'll see it's just the 50. I don't know if you can see it on the screen share here, but the 50. And it has every individual address. You can look these up. You could ask your real estate agent. You can look these up on Zillow. You can see the detail. You could sort and say, I only want the homes within a certain price point. But you could even go back to that one and say, well, I like Toscana Isles. That sounds interesting. And you could say, okay, what about everything under 5 to 350? Well, look at that. You lose it completely. So, you know what I'm saying? You kind of get the point here. I think it's really interesting. You even have the tax average there, if that's accurate in MLS. I threw another one on there for you, like area. Why? Because this instantly tells you, like, it's north of the island if you watch the rest of the video. So it might not be play for you. And you can also group that just right here if you don't want any of that. This gets rid of everything selected. This little cube. I also did another one which is change the order of the ranking. So then I said, like, what if you only want Wellen Park? What's the most popular within that? Well, a lot of stuff that's going to be called South Venice, this will even help you get the layer down, is called South Venice. A lot of it's not in Wellen Park. A lot of that's old school beach neighborhoods. The way you can tell that is look at the average year built. Wellen Park wasn't built in '84. So that easily lets you say, like, okay, what skewed those numbers? Well, what's actually in the Wellen general conversation, right? Grand Paradiso, I think, to me, it's in there. But you have Island Walk, you have Venice Gardens. You can do the same exact thing here. It's the same data points, but it just allows you to change the conversation. You can say I want a condominium. Where are those going to be? What's going to be my average there? You can say I want anything that's a non-single family home by selecting all 3. So that, you get the point here. Raw data, all of it's in here. You can click anything, do anything you want here. The description, we'll put pop-ups on this video, hopefully. The description box below has a direct link to it. It will be on the free guides and resources all the time. It will not go away, at least until it's updated next year. On my website, we just trade you for an email address. Again, it's in that group that I mentioned, the private Florida relocation group. And one of the best ways, just kind of a shameless plug here, one of the best ways to use this is not in a silo. This stuff's not, I'm not sitting back here in like a cave, it looks like it, and creating these things and not communicating with anyone. We're trying to hand a baton to you. I'm trying to equip you to be able to ask, whether it's us, yourself, or anyone, better questions. So if you learned a little bit or learned with your agent a little bit, you ask someone on our team especially, just think about the path of like how much more value that is versus a random situation. Because all of this is drilled down. All of our agents have this material first. All of our agents know what I'm doing here. And then they're out touring every single day in the community to see not only what the data says, but your reaction based on you physically seeing it after thinking what you thought you knew from the data, if that makes any sense. So I'd really consider that to reference that kind of thing. But even if you don't, this will make you hopefully 100 times smarter than the average real estate agent, even if you didn't want to use one. So let's go to the next section. Okay, now finally on to the area of Wellen Park, which I keep mentioning, and it's best to tell this story with an origin. Wellen Park was actually a community called the West Villages a few years ago. You had a neighborhood called, it was one of the most popular retirement places you could go to, neighborhood called Grand Palm by Neal Communities, which built Windward and Lakewood Ranch, Indigo and Lakewood Ranch, Canoe Creek, Parish, Grand Park, and Sarasota. You get the point. They've been around. You had Renaissance by Mattamy Homes. You have across the street Oasis by MI Homes, amongst a few others. Then they come up with this concept called Wellen Park, kind of a branding play of sorts. They grab these communities, they reach down below and grab Boca Royale from Englewood, which is mostly Neal Communities' old school golf outfit. And they turn everything that was called West Villages into the West Villages district that's now part of a larger concept. The second part of the concept they add is a brand new district called the Playmore District. And this is where it gets really intriguing because it's much more master planned because it's new. So when it's more master planned, it's more intentional. They know how the communities are going to orient to each other to satiate all the life cycles, so they're not just duplicates of each other with a different builder. The way they cross in and out of the town, roads, the whole thing makes more sense. Well, of course, Neal Communities jumps right back in the mix. They build two. One called Avelina, which is a boutique less than 100 home community. They add Wisteria, which is a smaller community outfit, like smaller homes in their collection. Toll Brothers comes down from Lakewood Ranch and builds one called Solstice, which is adds a luxury element. They also have one in North Venice called Venice Woodlands, a little bit as well, but really high end if you're not doing a semi-custom home, especially. Sunstone is the same builder who built Renaissance, which is Mattamy. They built one in here with a little bit more amenities, always pretty affordable. And I believe Mattamy actually is the master plan developer of the whole Playmore district, which gets more interesting here in a minute. Lennar hops back in. Lennar always seems to hop in. They built Sarasota National, which is the golf one, a little bit north of here, the Grand Paradiso, which I mentioned, Lakewood National and the like. They had Antigua, which is one of the most affordable communities that exists in Wellen Park. They add Wellen Park Golf and Country Club very recently here, which is it's basically their only active new construction community that exists right now as I speak in 2024. It gets more interesting than that. Then they say, well, like, I was saying 2 years ago, a year ago, whatever, there's not a ton of custom down here. Like, Toll's pared down neighborhood was like the highest end kind of. And so they had Everly, which is going to be a mixed custom builder neighborhood with, a lot of the custom builders that you see up in Lakewood Ranch, in addition to Homes by West Bay, which hasn't done a bunch around here. Grand Place was one of the most interesting. It's the Sam Rogers neighborhood, which is a very, very boutique custom builder. And the owner walks every single lot. That's in there as well. You have the addition of Mattamy Homes' first 55 and up community that I've ever seen, which is going to have like pickleball stadium, a ton of courts, unbelievable amenities. And when Wellen Park first came out, they were going real low frills with the amenities. They were kind of playing that the town is our amenities. It was a lot more affordable because of that, but some of these communities had $300-400 HOAs that only included lawn care and no amenities at all. So you get the point here. So now you got Lake Spur in there too, but now you're sitting at 9-11 total neighborhoods, a lot smaller version of Lakewood Ranch. And then they build a brand new downtown. So you're starting to get the live, work, play, because now you have the live, now you have the play, and maybe the work. But you have waterfront dining. I'm just going to rattle these off for you here to give you an example. You have a tavern and rooftop bar. You have the yard, which is like Sparkman Wharf in the Tampa area, if you've ever seen it, or like the Grove out in Wesley Chapel, which they take like the shipping containers and make them restaurants. Kind of a cool walking thing. You have an outfitter that has like the kayaks and the paddle boards for the lake. The lake is a lake and a trail with 2.8 miles of pedestrian walkway, splash pad, playground, a lawn, an event center. You get the point, right? So now you got all those neighborhoods that surround the Playmore district. Has unbelievable proximity to that downtown. So now you not only have downtown Venice, which is like old school, the suburbs had to go to the town's downtown, but now you have its own downtown. It's open to the public, but its own downtown. In addition to that, then you look at that whole thing and you say, well, this isn't really comparable to Lakewood Ranch. Technically, like everybody says it is, like even like a lot of folks in our team are like Lakewood Ranch versus Wellen. We hear that a lot. It more is an apt comparison of one section of Lakewood Ranch, which is the sexiest section of all of it, which is the Waterside District. Could look at the amount of neighborhoods I just mentioned, 9, 11, 12, downtown built in. Well, that's the entire Wellen Park conversation, but that is also the entire Waterside conversation. But with Waterside and Lakewood Ranch, that is 25% of all of Lakewood Ranch. There's much more behind it. So now you have the most desirable on top of the most desirable value with great school districts, which I'm going to talk about here later in the video. You have bikeability of one of the most golf cart friendly areas, in addition to beyond like the villages up in that central part of Florida that exists in totality. And you might have the price point economic value that's, I mean, I wouldn't say 15 years before, like 15 years ago version of what Lakewood Ranch was, but you have speculative value. You have at least a 5-10 year head start on what this is going to be. And I've heard they're going to go 20, 30 more years. So this is the reason that South Venice is completely changed. And all of that is within, 20 minutes or less to the beach is absolutely unheard of in most areas of the country besides like Anacostia, up in St. Augustine and St. Johns County. So that's what I'd say about Wellen Park for this video. Okay, and lastly, for our real estate and home section, if something in Wellen Park just happened to not strike your fancy and you're looking for new construction, especially if you're honed in on the other areas where Wellen Park does not exist, I wanted to mention briefly what other things are interesting at the moment. So if I'm going north to south, there's 2 townhome communities that offer relative affordability, whether that's investment or you just want to be in this proximity. Ventura and Palmero, both Taylor Morrison outfits. Ventura's really new. And this area is, you could be 7 miles to both Nokomis and Venice Beach. Case of Keys right next to you. It's very coastal, so that's kind of the play there. And you have, again, relatively affordability. Talon Preserve, they call it Palmer Ranch, but it's not really Palmer Ranch, but Talon Preserve is DeValsta. DeValsta is owned by Pulte. Typically, they're amenity-rich brand, but they have really nice amenities there. And the homes are in that Neal Communities, Pulte, that level home, like that kind of style. So that could be an interesting one for you. And these are all north right now. Magnolia Bay is also north of the island. That's going to be Meritage homes. Meritage usually is pretty affordable. One of the most interesting overall is called Vistera of Venice, Vistera. I think I said that right. Vistera of Venice, and that's going to be a mixed builder. So that's going to be David Weekley, which hasn't been in this area yet. I did hear they're coming to Wellen Park though soon. MI Homes and Neal Communities that are combining. So this is going to give you family kind of homes, affordable, good location, proximity to everything. What already existed in that area, Aria, was a semi-custom Neal signature community, which they build one in Waterside as well. And this is kind of Mediterranean style. So if you can find anything in there. Silo is also regular Neal. Vincenza is also regular Neal. And then Venice Woodlands was half Toll Brothers, half MI Homes, I think. So just food for thought there. Those are other ones that you could kind of just put in your Google list. And let's finish off with kind of a bonus round of other things you may want to consider. Okay, the final section. This is just kind of like a catch-all ruminations bucket of things that I just wanted to hopefully add additional value with. So I'm just going to kind of rattle these off real quick and we'll wrap the video up. All right, number one is, I think going south right now is getting younger. I've mentioned that on some other videos, but this was traditionally the median age of this area was super, super high. It seemed too slow pace for everything. A lot of the homes were built to orient to the people that were targeting it. So you saw a ton of villas, a ton of stuff that just didn't work for, especially people without kids, but even people with kids. It's just the family model didn't work and the price point didn't work. And they built a lot of the new construction. I felt like in that same lane, they were going no frills, low amenities. They were building these smaller things. But I think what they were trying to do originally was provide maybe a more affordable new construction for people that lived in over 55 and up lifestyle. So I think a couple things happened. One, I think it accidentally got younger because the same homes that worked for some of those models also happened to be price points that worked for younger people. It became attractive. And people that simply wanted a slower paced beach lifestyle, and the main part of Sarasota didn't work for them. Another big boost we had was, the COVID era work and relocation thing that happened. It was obviously super abnormal. We already had relocation, but what you had is you had people that could work from home now, and industry is a problem. No one moves to Sarasota, Florida for economics for the most part, just not what it's built for. But if you could work from home, one of them, Sarasota and Naples, some of the most lovely places in the world if you don't have to commute to work. But you also had people like escaping for politics. You just had a bigger net migration where people are like, I'm not going to wait 5 years any longer. And this became a resting place for a lot of those. So it got younger. And now I think they're building, especially in the North Venice and a lot of the new Wellen Park in the Playmore that's existed in the last 12 months plus. I think now they're actually building things that are attractive on purpose for that. So that's more to come, but I think that's going to happen again, maybe not as young as Tampa is going to be, but we're going to have to be a lot younger. Second is schools. I had mentioned, I'm not sure on this video, but for the first time since I've ever seen the numbers, Sarasota, Florida was ranked #1 school district publicly in the entire state of Florida. At 68 total public school districts, Sarasota, Florida is #1 amongst all the rest. And I just want to kind of mention some of the schools. So not only do you have the Pine View School for the Gifted, which is public, technically a public charter. I believe that's the #1 elementary school in the United States and a lot of people's lists. Not only do you have that, but just on public school-wise, what you're going to be working with is Laurel Nokomis is an option if you're in the northern section. That's an 8 out of 10. I've seen that a 9 out of 10 on a lot of lists, right? And ratings, grain of salt. Venice Senior High School, like I mentioned, is like right on the island. It's very, very coastal. That's a 7 out of 10. Unbelievable athletics. And a 7 out of 10 is a great score. I mean, if you look at the other high schools that people like value, Riverview High in Sarasota, Lakewood Ranch High, look at their ratings too. And, just for context there. In addition to that, one option if you're going south could be Garden Elementary. That's an 8 out of 10. Venice Middle School is a 7 out of 10. Taylor Ranch Elementary School, which is the most southern of the ones I mentioned on this list, is an 8 out of 10. And then Venice Elementary is a 9 out of 10. So it's not that common to be in cities where elementary through high are all highly rated if they're not private at all. And that becomes a problem in the bigger cities you get, the more urban you get, where a lot of elementary schools are great. But what if the middle school's a 4 and the elementary school's a 9? So I think that's nice. And Venice, all the areas I mentioned are in Sarasota County. So that's another one. 3, the beach vibe thing. I think it's becoming way more attractive for people of that kind of safe, docile, almost like 30A panhandle way to raise their children or ways to live the rest of those golden years out. And Venice really encapsulates that in a great way. With the non-barrier island, I think, again, is a big part of it. But you get down to that area, it just feels more coastal. You can feel it for larger stretches of land. Then, like, Siesta Key to the mainland feels like a bigger gap. And most people don't live in the closest mainland to the gap. So the divide of 3, 4, 5, 7 miles feels way bigger in the Lido or the Siesta Key to the mainland versus the Venice area. So these beaches are laid back. They're super, super, like, kind of a northern beach feeling to a point. So I think that's nice. And then lastly, the one thing I did want to mention is if you're looking at sinking your money somewhere or trying to navigate how to do this whole thing, I think Venice is no longer going to be a Sarasota Junior. This is going to be an area that people seek out individually. They don't go to Sarasota and say, what else can I get? They're going to look at it. They're going to invest in it. And this is only going to get better. I think actually this is Venice getting more in vogue. I just thought of this while I was saying it, but Venice getting more in vogue might actually hurt Naples more than it hurts Sarasota, because I think that it's going to be viewed as a separate landing spot. And we see a lot of times if you pinned against the wall and you had to pick one on a map, that a lot of people think Sarasota is just overall appeal. Again, you had to pick a homestead, wins out, I guess, if you just had a percentage odds basis. Well, if Venice gets to where it's like a sister, not a daughter, then I think that could be more interesting. So give me just a second here and I'll give you some fun free giveaways and other stuff we have going on, and we'll wrap up. Okay, that's a wrap for my 2024 manifesto for Venice, Florida. I really hope you enjoyed it. At least it feels like a manifesto to me at this point in the conversation. If you're not already subscribed to the channel and you did resonate with anything in this video, please consider subscribing. We try to just simply make you the smartest consumer when it comes to the whole state of Florida, but most importantly, Southwest Florida coast, Tampa Bay versus Sarasota versus Naples. We do real macro stuff. Like I broke down the analytics of the top 25 cheapest beaches in the whole state of Florida. We do top 10 lists. We do deep dive guides like this, and we go from top to bottom at 60-minute long interviews with one person about one part of the city. We do all of that here. So if that sounds even attractive at all to you, please consider subscribing. I mentioned our first ever, we're probably a week old when this video is released, of my private Florida relocation community group. This is where we're gonna have a bunch of things, but amongst them, every single week, it's gonna be my brain dump of real-time things I'm working on. While I'm preparing these videos, while I'm talking to all our agents and I'm talking to all the reps that are about, and I'm pondering what's gonna happen next, that all happens weekly. So you just don't hear about it weekly. So I'm gonna dump it all right there, right to you. We'll also have a way you can ask me any question you want. I don't care how narrow, random, how insignificant you think it may be. It's a lot easier way to get to me there than to get me in the comments of the YouTube potentially. And I'm gonna answer 100% of them personally myself, as fast as I can, hopefully. It's gonna be private, no other members will see that. When I create guides like I created for this video is scheduled and it's posted, and then that guide's out on the internet on our website, right? And if you hear me say it in this individual video, you might grab it, but in a future video with a different guide, you might not know about this guide. Well, when I create those guides, the very first place they're gonna go before they ever hit the website will be in that community group. We're gonna do many, many things like that. I think it's gonna be valuable to speak to other people going through what you're going through as well. So please join that. It is completely free. It's probably like a quick registration, but it's completely free. It's just our way to build the group, and it's private and members only accepted. So anything else we can help you in the real estate market, buying, selling, and investing, of course, the elephant in the room, we would love to. We have a super unique organization of me plus the agents on our team. It gives you more bandwidth. It gives you hopefully more intelligence because we're all working on core competencies. And a lot of times it gives you someone that did what you're trying to do right now, 3 years ahead of you. And to me, that's the most underrated perspective you could have. So thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I am Adam Hancock. This is the Florida Relocation Guide, sponsored by the Sunshine State Company Real Estate Brokerage, and we'll see you on the next one.